Hello, we are now live. Welcome to the channel where we're going to be discussing once again the Long Price Quartet with Book 2, A Betrayal in Winter. And we have some fantastic people who I'm honored to have all on my channel. So this is definitely pretty awesome to have. So, I mean, you guys probably are, well, I guess there's probably people who don't know who I am and only came for everybody else. So I'm Niko from Niko's Book Reviews. Mostly read fantasy books and am really enjoying Long Price Quartet so far. But why don't we go around, everybody introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Are we starting here?
We'll go clockwise. So Andrew, Alan, Phillips.
Well, I'm Andrew. If you know Niko, you probably know me because Niko ripped me from the comment section and threw me in front of a camera. So he's the whole reason I started my channel. But I'm Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads. I read fantasy and sci-fi, love Long Price Quartet, and am a fan of everybody's channel who is here. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, me. Sorry. I'm Alan from the Library of Alexandria. Messing up people's pronunciations of the actual library since 2020. I've seen two people do that on my camera, which is amazing. I love Long Price Quartet, and now it's official thanks to Philip, who has dubbed me the Long Price Prophet.
I was going to require that you showed that during the streams.
Absolutely correct. Sitting here running my desk. So yes, I'm excited to talk about this stuff. Like I love talking about this stuff and seeing what people liked that I liked, what people liked that didn't strike me quite as hard. So I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, it's I'm Philip, and it is such an honor to be here with everyone, and especially the Long Price Prophet, who is responsible for me, at least. I don't know about you others, but he's definitely responsible for me reading this series, and I am very glad that Alan was right, that I was going to love this series, and my first exposure to Daniel Abraham's writing, and I couldn't be happier. I think he's a great writer. From what I've seen in these first two books, I'm very excited to discuss A Betrayal in Winter with you guys.
Awesome. I do have mine. I do. I'll
My
show it.
omnibus edition.
One from Validity here. Oh gosh.
I've got the one from the UK.
I bought this like right before they went out of stock because I'm like, well, if Alan likes it that much, and just bought it.
It must be good. I'm Sarah. I have not pronounced Alexandria correctly while playing Seven Wonders since starting to follow Alan's channel. So now not only does my husband win every time, so I have to lose, but I have to lose while not being able to pronounce the words. So it's like
the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Is that what it is now?
Always. And I'm happy to be here too. It's exciting. I have not, like Andrew, read 21 books since this one, but I have read a couple of books since this one. So hopefully I will still have the details straight.
And it's funny when wizard magic doesn't count.
Yeah, right. Doesn't
count. I read this last year, and I'm not sure I've read 21 books since I read it.
I've read 16 books this month already.
Do those books have pictures in them, Andrew? Or?
No.
At least one of them was the Cat in the Hat. I'm pretty sure.
You know what?
He's been reading to his daughter and counting.
If we're counting, Where's My Cow? Yeah. Then we're at least 35.
Where's my cow?
Oh my gosh. This is fun already. We haven't even talked about the book yet, so I love it. This is the perfect intro. So
Sarah, if you want to divest the Library of Alexandria from your mindscape, just start searching the Library of Alan.
There we go. I will.
Works every time.
I still remember specifically Alan introducing himself on a live stream one time and saying, my channel is the Library of Alexandria. If you search that in YouTube, you will not get it. You will get the Library of Alexandria.
Yeah, YouTube is true. Like, clearly you meant the real one.
That happened to me so many times early on when I was trying to find your channel. Like, why would it come up? So,
if you search Alexandria by itself or the Library of Alan, you'll find it. Library of Alexandria? Nope, it's going to be like, you meant Alexandria. Thanks, YouTube.
Oh, man. Well, soon you'll be big enough that you'll be bigger than the real thing, you know. So,
well,
I
I
look at you as that
exist and
cultural
haven't been
icon.
burned down yet. So thank you, Caesar.
You have a step up. There you go. And distinct advantage.
I have yet to be set on fire. That is the milestone we're searching for right now.
That's not what he said. He said he hasn't been burned down. We don't know.
So a Betrayal in Winter. What were everyone's just overall thoughts on Betrayal of Winter?
I really loved it. I thought it was a real step up in the maturity of our characters and the themes. I remember at one point something happened. I immediately messaged Alan and I was like, yes! It was such a good scene. And I'll wait to talk about it before we go full spoilers. But I was like, that's exactly what should have happened in this instant, and that's what happens. And it's our characters making smart decisions, based on just like, well, some of our characters making smart decisions, and just going with, hey, this is a bad idea. I'm not going to, let you stay here if you're just going to cause wreck and ruin. I love that.
Are we going clockwise? Sorry, are we doing? Is that the order?
We can go any order.
Oh, sorry. I really liked this. I came off of Summer, and I don't usually like. I liked this one slightly less than Summer when I first read it, despite this having one of my favorite female characters like ever. Like, what a Shakespearean character is freaking, who we're gonna talk about. Like, such rage, but such understandable motives. Like, I mean, I can't think of any words to describe her other than Shakespearean. But I love the way that Abraham, and not everybody likes this, does time skips, because really no one usually likes time skips. But he does very little. He tells you very little, but with these few sentences that he chooses to devote to this has happened in the last 15 years or 14 years, it does enough to where you can, get the sense of what kind of people these men were during that time without, spending inordinate amounts of time on the past, which is why he can keep these to 300 pages or so instead of, 800-page volumes, because he doesn't really go over the past. So I really like what he does in here. I like how our characters are evolving and still dealing with their decisions. They're dealing with their decisions from Shadow and Summer, and now they're making more choices they have to deal with. Plus, Stone Made Soft is just terrifying in a different way.
Oh, he's the best.
Yeah, I agree with Alan. And in the Shakespeare comparison, I actually, in my review, compared the character in question to Macbeth.
Yes.
And also to Faust, leading to the obvious observation that ambition is a big theme in here, and the price of ambition. And also, I would say that ambition, which is made more understandable in the context of the society. So there's a lot in here about social conformity too, and the price of what your society is built on, right? There's a price to that. So the idea of social conformity, unthinking social conformity, and the price that exacts on people in order to uphold the status quo of society. And that makes the ambition of the character that Alan mentioned much more understandable. Not that you necessarily love the character, but that you see the character more in a tragic light, I think, than just as a pure villain or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot in here of really fantastic character work. In addition to this incorporation of themes of ambition and the price of conformity, you have some wonderful, complex relationships with characters who exhibit the full, psychological depth of a human being, where you're capable of loving someone and hating someone simultaneously, of depending on someone and loathing someone, and the full array of emotions that come into play when you're in a very close relationship with someone that can also be seen as a rival, for example. So it's really brilliantly done. Abraham's a master of character development, particularly in regard to relationships between the characters. So I actually enjoyed book 2 even a little more than book 1. I would say A Betrayal in Winter for me was even a little bit better than A Shadow in Summer. I love them both though. So I keep hearing from people who say, and I haven't read them yet, but the books 3 and 4 are the best. So
they are on another level, Philip. Like it just,
wow.
Like it's I don't know anybody that doesn't agree. Like I don't know anybody that doesn't agree that books 3 and 4 just take it to a new level. It's so good.
Huh.
That's a high bar to beat.
Yeah. I'm excited.
So I agree with what everybody has been saying. I think I am like Alan. I don't know. You said when you first read these books, I don't know if that has changed since you now have the full picture. But I think I enjoyed this just a little bit less than book 1. But like Philip just said, I really enjoyed both of them. I like both of them. I think book 1 I was not expecting how unique, and I know everybody says that about like every new book that they read, but I genuinely was not expecting how different this would feel from other fantasy. And Betrayal in Winter still did feel like A Shadow in Summer, and I really enjoyed the character that everybody is talking about. I agree that she was a standout character in this book, but I was just a little bit more used to Abraham's writing, so it was less of a surprise to me than the first book had been. But that being said, I think that they're both phenomenal books, and why pit them against each other when we can love both of them. But I had a great time reading this. I'm very much looking forward to starting the third one tomorrow.
Ooh, send me updates, Sarah, after reading it.
I will.
Sarah, I'll start it tomorrow as well.
Oh, come on, guys. You're putting pressure on now.
Just from the prologue, guys, the prologue of book 3 is like, it's something else. Like I love the prologue of book 3.
I've specifically waited to read it until after this live show, and we did it late in the month. So that's where I'm like, I still want to read it this month. It's just, it's going to be later.
Got plenty of time. Got 8 days.
Not all of us.
It's only 300 pages.
I'm reading a Malazan book, so it's going to be a while for me.
Are you on Dusty Dreams?
I will be soon. I'm actually doing an Esselmont book first.
Which one? Orb, Scepter, Throne?
No, I've already done that. So it's I'm doing Blood and Bone. Blood and
Bone, Jungles.
And then comes Dust of Dreams.
That's right. That's right.
And then comes book 3 of the Long Price Quartet. So yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow. And how does that fit into Malazan? But no, I'm just kidding.
Philip, it's going to be March before you read Autumn War.
Well, at least a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I definitely, so I think I'm in the camp of liking Betrayal in Winter slightly more, just because I love the kind of like tangled web being woven of all the events. And like there's been a lot of, the books do a ton with both characters and just the complex reactions to different events, and all of those different parts as well. And so I agree. I mean, I liked both, and I'm very excited to read the next two as well.
Mine's almost exclusively locale based. I don't like feeling cold when I read. Like I liked that Sarah Cat is like a temperate zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought the world building in the context of this cold climate was fantastic, without giving anything away, I guess. But I love the touches of having doors on the second stories.
Because the snow drifts
because the snow gets so deep you can't walk in the front door, or the underground tunnels beneath the city of Machi. That's really cool stuff. So Abraham's, in addition to his character work, I really admire his world building.
See, I like the mines.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the mines.
And Machi feels so different from Sarah Cat. Like, so different.
It really did. It felt like it is a completely different area, but yeah, it felt that way.
Yeah.
I will say that he was able to capture the feeling of being in a mine. So I worked at a World War I historic site in France when I was younger. So I lived in France for a little while, and I worked at Vimy Ridge and Beaumont Hamel, which are like 2 Canadian war sites. And when you work at Vimy Ridge, you have to give tours of the tunnels that they used in World War I. So you have to bring people down there and show them around. And it's terrifying to think of, because we're there now where they've been like structurally, they've been supported. And you just think of all these people like packed into these tiny holes without any of those supports, just wondering like what's going to go off, what's going to cave in on you. And so the parts where he had written in this book where they're down in the mines and you're wondering what's going to happen, I was like, oh, that is exactly how it feels. And it's the worst feeling to be down there. That's
one of the terrifying things about Stone Made Soft is he's dopey. He's portrayed as this slow, like what? Mm-hmm. Like big, just gravelly voiced, like dope, who's just really slow of thinking. But like when they're in the mines and he just casually is like, I could drop this whole mine on everybody in here. It's just like, Stone Made Soft, what? Please stop.
My favorite moment was when he just gets that big old grin. He's like, no, we're playing now.
Challenges him to the game right when Samai is that is, oh my gosh, like my hands are sweating thinking about that.
That was one of the most intense things and it was just a board game basically.
It was brilliant.
And it was the way they ended it too, where like it doesn't specify what happened at first, and you just have to keep reading and see.
He was trying to break free.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was just brilliant that like because you discount Stone Made Soft because. But like Philip said in his review, like the Andot want to be free. But we saw that way more with Seedless. He's so overt about it. Stone Made Soft is so much more compliant in his own, bondage.
Well, he goes from almost comedic relief to antagonist like that. Yeah. And even if it's only like not full antagonist, but he becomes antagonistic on the flip of a coin.
They are
well, there's a creepiness to him, but there's also a difference of perspective because Samai is just the latest of the poets who are controlling him. And there's even one point early on where he's like, yeah, I've seen you do this before. And Samai's like, no, you haven't seen me. Yeah, you're the same as all the others, And that's his perspective, which is also kind of scary to think this is an entity that's been around a long time and has a very not human perspective on things. So I thought that was a great touch as well.
Yeah. Whereas Seedless had just been down by Shine.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like a first generation.
Sorry.
Yes. No, that's okay. I was just going to say that's what makes it even scarier. Like, that he's been through all of these other poets and that he has waited. So once you find out that he knows, like he has reached this point with everyone else, he's just been waiting for Samai to reach that lowest point, that point where he is out of control, where he has no control over his emotions. And he goes from this, and I know the game is not like this, but the whole time I was reading the book, I was just envisioning him as like playing tic-tac-toe against my son, just like the easiest game, like having no clue, like I can't beat a 5-year-old at the simplest game, from that to like this creature that has been lying in wait for the right moment to pounce, and it just completely changes your view on him. And I actually messaged Alan about this because I was like, Seedless was so instantly compelling because he was so creepy, but you kind of felt for him wanting to be free. And what makes Stone Made Soft even scarier is that he does give you that false sense of security at some points where you think maybe he's not having such a rough time with this. We're kind of pals. No, you're not.
He's still technically. But then like what Samai does in order to win is, that's what I was talking about earlier, where like the character work and like the maturity that he makes that sacrifice, and he's just like, this ain't worth it. I've got priorities. I've got a duty. He just writes it on, and he's like, go. I'm unburdening myself. I'm letting this go. And then he focuses back in.
We've jumped to the end where
well, that's why I didn't say
everything unravels. Yeah.
Yeah, I kept it kind of generic, but like.
But you have to admit that,
I know, but.
You have to admit that Samai really has to have some stones to play that game, though.
Oh my gosh! I was not expecting that. That was a good dad joke. That was fantastic.
that was a dad joke with finesse and experience.
There you go. That's how we do it around here.
F-.
Oh my gosh!
I give that joke 1 star, Philip.
Well, you are the 5-star strumpets.
I know. That tells you how bad that joke was.
Yeah.
You're getting a 5 from me.
That was a good joke.
But when it comes to priorities, though, like at the very beginning of the book, if we're at the end of the book, going back to the beginning, and I don't remember the character's name, but when Ota is just like, "Hey," and he does it again, he's like, "I am the son of the Kaimachi,"
Kion.
and she's like, "Get out."
Kion.
Yeah, Kion. She's like, "Get out," and he's like, "But I love you." She's like, "I'm sure you do. You gotta go."
I love that. He's like, "I do not want that. You are not branded. They are not coming after me. You get gone."
I messaged Alan. I was like, "Yes."
I think, okay, so responsibility is a running theme through these things. Like, what is their responsibility? And Ota is so often just caught up in events where he tried to run from responsibility in book 1, and he continues to get pulled into this crap that he don't want to be a part of. You know what I mean? Like, which, may or may not make him a good king. Is like the best people to govern are the people who don't want it, right? And so just watching these people try to wrestle with what they're supposed to do, watching Mati want responsibility and never really be giving it, watching him try to fix the embarrassment that was Sarakat, that the Daikvo blames him for. You know what I mean? Watching Idan be forbidden responsibility. Literally, there's just marry somebody. Like, just marry somebody. Political alliance is fine. And it's just so fascinating. And then the choice that Samai makes, to be responsible rather than, go with who he loves. And it's just tremendous. And of course, we're going to talk about Idan, and, her rage is, anything she's doing would be lauded if she was a man.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that's gotta be so infuriating. So it's just good. Like, I just love watching these people wrestle with the hand that they've been dealt, want it or not.
Yeah, and something I really enjoyed about this one, because at first I thought it was going to be a negative, and then it definitely turned into a positive. But the second book hits a lot of the same notes and has a lot of the same things being explored with characters as the first book, but it typically happens pretty different. Like, we have a young poet, and we kind of see, like with Samai, he kind of has basically what Mati would have probably been like if he would have succeeded. Yeah. But then when we have that scene where he's like having trouble with his lover, and also there he's like, you know what, this is more important, whereas Mati of course did the opposite. And so seeing kind of these similar roles people are put in by handling it very differently, like you mentioned too with Oda's current lover, like Liat was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so important, I like you more now," and the other one's like, "Oh no, we're done, get out." And so there were a lot of similar situations where you see characters handle them very, very differently. And it kind of, I think, really hit more on the choices that people made in the first book to show that, hey, there was a different way to go about this. They just didn't.
It's interesting also to contrast Ota and Idan, who are siblings, and they're full siblings as well, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're both perceptive, and they're unusual in that they both perceive the injustice of the social system that they live in. So from Idan's perspective, she sees it from a gender point of view, where she was treated differently from her brothers. And as Alan said, everything that she's doing would have been absolutely praised if she had been male, whereas she's seen as a monster for doing it as a woman. Where Ota, on the other hand, recognizes this whole tradition of brothers killing each other as something monstrous, as something horrible. And of course, it's easier to see that when you're the outsider, isn't it? I mean, it's just classic that most of us don't see the oppression inherent in the system if we're the ones who are privileged by that oppression.
Now you see the violence inherent in the system.
Exactly. Whereas if you're the victim, you are much more readily seeing this injustice. It's like that short story, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, right? Where everybody in the town is ready to do this thing. They're all ready to stone each other. And so is Tessie, the one who ultimately gets picked, until she's the one who gets picked. And then suddenly, oh, this is not right. This is wrong. This is terrible. So when you become the victim, suddenly you see the injustice of it. So Ota, and as the youngest son, he's in a position to see that this is really messed up. His brothers killing each other, and the younger ones being farmed out to become poets, and the exploitation and sacrifice involved in being a poet is pretty messed up. I mean, from the perspective certainly of the Ondot, but even from the perspective of the poet, you have to give up a lot to be a poet. So they both perceive the injustice of the social system upon which their society is built, and I mean their responses to it are different. And ultimately, in this story, Idan fails and Ota wins, I guess you could say, although he's sort of forced into the place where he's vying for power. He didn't want it to begin with.
And Philip, to make it worse on Idan's, like this was the insult to injury for Idan. On top of everything you just said, the fact that no one even considered that it was her. No one even, like, it never crossed their mind that it could be freaking Idan, who is literally at the center of everything. They're like, yeah, but she's a woman. Like, it never, like, who could it be?
Yeah.
That's so much more insulting to her. They never thought that it could be a woman pulling the strings. Ugh, poor.
And
when even later they're like, is her fiance taking advantage of her and forcing her into this? And it's like, no, it's the exact opposite. He's the one who doesn't want to do this.
Oh, he's a twerp.
What makes it even worse for Ota, though, is like literally he was out of sight, out of mind. He was a ghost, and if he had just kept his mouth shut and not gone to Machi, none of this would have happened. But his humanity got the better of him, and he was like, "My family's killing themselves in vying for power. Why didn't I go look at it?" Like it's it's always that kind of like shiny thing over there, and you're just like, "Hey, that looks interesting. I should probably go check that out." Just to be on the, oh, I'm in the middle of a car wreck.
Yeah, he's curious. He wants to know how his family's doing and check up on things. And, his boss offers him a way to do that. And
yeah,
I mean, he's been away from them for what? Like
his
30
whole life?
years. Yeah.
It also seems like no matter how poorly your parents treat you, there's a part of you that always wants to connect with them to be proud of you. And so you can see Ota simultaneously recognizing that he has nothing to do with his father, but also wanting to see his father.
Yeah.
And his father just denounces him straight up.
Yeah.
He's just like, I loved my sons. Like, why did you do this? And he's like, I didn't do it. He's like, clearly you did it.
Yeah.
Of course, because it has to be Ota, because that's what's done. The sons kill each other.
Exactly.
They can't think that, one, they wouldn't want to, two, that it's a woman. These people are it's just fascinating. It's so interesting.
And we're all indoctrinated by our social systems.
Yes.
We can't see things that you could see if you were just outside of that social system. Yeah.
What's even worse for Idan is she kicks off this set of events by like killing her brothers, and then realizes towards the end, oh, why have I done this? I'm not going to have the power. I'm just going to be in a long line of his wives, which then leads to her preemptively, which that was his big complaint. The twerp, I forget his name.
Adra?
Yeah. That guy. He's just like, you didn't give me the chance to even mess up. You just assumed I was going to. And she was like, that's our culture. And if she had taken that line of thought even further, she would have already seen that because she already betrayed him to be with Samai, that he was going to do the same thing, and she was just going to become another wife. So she was putting somebody else in power. She wasn't even taking it for herself.
She was not thinking clearly.
I think
she's still a teenager.
What Alan said in his introduction when he talked about how precise Daniel Abraham is as an author with such short books, the way that he can build up these sibling relationships when they all get such small amounts of page time is so impressive. Like, we know the toll that this has taken on Idan because she did love her brothers. Like, she is just trying to be a part of this system and get whatever power she can, because that's what you do. She's just trying to be like them, and it did hurt her to hurt them and hurt them to hurt each other. So I am, through both of these books, have been very impressed by the way that he can make you feel how they perceive each other and how they relate to each other in such small ways. It takes, like Alan said, like 2 sentences. That's all that you need. And for a lot of people, that would feel like clunky, exposition heavy writing, but it doesn't with Daniel Abraham, which is it's a skill.
Yeah, we see Adon talking with Vitra's wife at her introduction, right?
I was just about to talk about that.
So we see that she has no beef with Vitra or her sister-in-law, but
he got done dirty.
This is her only way out. Like Adon doesn't have a choice in her mind. Her choice is it's a Hobson's choice. It's take the crappy horse or take none at all. You know what I mean? Like her life is, I am going to be married away for political purposes. That is it. She can choose that, or she can accept that, or she can make another choice. What choice can she make? Like, she can't. I don't know. Like, I guess she could say, well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be noble, but I don't think she can. So I don't know. It's an extreme decision for sure, but I definitely understand.
I'm still interested to see what's going to come of her being left alive and exiled, because I imagine that will come back.
I thought a whole bunch of stuff from book 1 was going to come back. Nope.
Yeah, that's where, like, so I just say I do agree that he does a great job of spending very little time and giving you enough. But with Sarah Cat, like, I did want a little more, because you get like 1 or 2.
Yeah, it's like 2
throwaway
sentences,
lines,
and then it's
in collapse. What do you need, Nico? It's been
I wanted to know more of what happened.
It's
Like,
the United States circa 2008.
I'll tell you what I would like to see more of. On the one hand, I totally agree with Sarah about Abraham's ability to bring characters to life in a very short space. Like the oldest brother, Betra, I loved that guy. I thought he was great. And then he was killed, and it was like, whoa, what happened? But what I would love to see more of is the Galtz. I haven't really, we had one Galtic character in book 1 who was cool, and his relationship with Amat was very interesting. We didn't get really their side of things much at all. And here you have these Galtz kind of working in the background, but where are they? What are they? I want to see Galtz. Alan, are we going to get some Galtz?
The prologue of Autumn War has started.
I was going to say, with the title of the next book, I imagine they're coming for sure. So
I just like watching Alan's face the whole time Philip was talking. He was
he's just getting closer to the mic.
Alistair Geis, who is a Galt in the prologue of Autumn War. Man, what a freaking character, man.
Okay.
That's just some good stuff.
I'm assuming the Galt that I met in book 1 has passed away. I mean, he was
Wilson?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's because Autumn War is 14 years after Betrayal in Winter.
So it's like 30 years later. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, what was so interesting is like coming off of the first book into the second and seeing what became of Mati. Like Mati, I think, Alan, you are correct. I enjoyed Mati more in this book than I did Ota. Mm-hmm. And specifically, like, he's this giant failure. The he's just like, nah, you had your chance in Sarah Ket, you screwed the pooch. You can just sit there and I'm going to ignore you for 10 years. And then he like had a baby with
Liat.
And then she just took his kid, and then there's the whole discussion that he has to have with Ota. He's like, hey, I had a kid. And he's just like, oh, I'm infertile. And then like that, we find out that's not true.
That was such an awkward scene. Like, I'm like, Ota,
he thought he was going to his death, so he was trying to be nice. He's like, hey, that's your kid, man. You should go.
Well, Mati had a choice. He could have stayed with Liat, but Mati wants to be successful. Like Mati, he wants to fix what he broke not his fault, but like what went wrong at Sarah Ket. And so he's trying. And what I love about these books is that no matter how old they get, we see they mature and they grow older, but they still have, like, you can still see boy Mati and you can still see boy Ota in what they do. Like, there's still these they still have some of what they had when they were kids in them. And Abraham, it makes brilliant. Like, it's just so, I don't know, it's just really good writing. Like, people grow and they change, but you know, you can also see the through line from how they were here to here. So
it's like when you go to your high school reunion and you revert to your high school self.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's so true, Alan, about Ota and Mati. That's a relationship I really enjoyed in book 2, because you get these complex layers. No longer is Mati just worshiping Ota. There's a lot of resentment there. It's like, dude, you ruined my life, but I still think of you as like my teacher, and I still have, it's this complex thing. And Mati turns him in, but doesn't do so happily, but he does it out of duty. And the brilliant moment in here, the best moment with those two, was when Ota tells Mati, I knew you were going to do the right thing. I knew you were going to do the right thing. And Mati was like, thank you. And he needed to hear that for like the last 15 years. He needed to hear that Ota thought that of him. And you know, even though he's treated like a loser by the Dai Quo and the other poets and everything else, Mati needed to hear from someone, and especially Ota, someone whose approval he really still, like you say, he's like a kid still wanting that approval. So it's just a brilliant relationship between the two of them, because there is that anger and almost hatred, but there's love at the same time. So it's really nicely done.
I just got chills you talking about that, Philip. Like Ota and Mati's relationship is brilliant. It's so good. It's so complex.
Yeah.
Really good.
It just reinforces how lifelike the story is. And this harkens back to what you were saying about Idan too, about how she didn't have any choices. And then you said, you know, I guess she could abdicate, but she can't really. And that's what is so good about this book, is that I haven't felt so far, and I don't know if this is going to be the same throughout the other two, nothing happens that feels story-like. It feels like real life. Like, these characters have to make real life choices, and there's not going to be some fantasy trope that comes in and shields them from real life, because this is the most lifelike in terms of character relationships and the things that happen to people of probably any fantasy book that I have read. I feel like these characters are not armored by anything. Like, what is going to happen is going to feel true to what would happen were this a real world.
And that stays. That stays. Like, the choices, and as the stakes get higher, the choices get harder. You know what I mean? Like, they are real people making. I never felt that anything was shoehorned in to advance the plot ever. They're always real people making real decisions, even when they are boneheaded, dumb decisions. Like, what are you doing? And then I'm like, of course, he's a person. Like, we make terrible decisions all the time.
When they went to go have Mati assassinated, like, what did you think that was going to... At that point, like, that let him know, this isn't Ota. Ota wouldn't do this to me. No matter what we've been through. Like, that was the key thing. He's like, I got stabbed. They were like, yeah, Ota did it to you. He's like, nah, no, he didn't.
Well, the Galtz are getting desperate. So they're like, let's assassinate someone in broad daylight.
I did think that was a really clumsy assassination attempt, though.
Well, it was forced. He straight up said, this is a bad idea, and she says, you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And he was just like, okay.
Yeah, that dude's I mean, it's above his pay grade. He just goes where he's told, because that's the same guy from. It's the moon-faced guy from
Shy.
Yeah, thank you, from Summer.
Yeah, so he straight up said, this is a bad idea. And she was like, I don't care. This is a brilliant idea, and you're going to do it. Which then just, at that point, you then gave Mati the motivation to keep digging. Because in his heart, he knows that Ota would have at least shown his face first before he stabbed him. Yeah. And he'd have done it in the front instead of the back.
So good.
Yeah. I'll be really interested to see if book 3 has more of Ota and Mati like interacting, just because they didn't get a ton of that in book 2 because of, you know, the way the story was going. But that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, all the character relationships are very complex, and I think that's where it's like, even like there's been some form of like love triangle in both of these books, and normally that would drive me nuts.
Same.
But the way that Abraham writes it, it does seem more realistic. And it's not doing it to just look, oh, it's dramatic. It's more like these are real people making probably poor choices in some circumstances, but it's because it feels more real and honest. It didn't really bother me.
Yeah, I have the same feeling with so I just watched the show Arcane, this animated show, and one of the things that I allowed it for is it has a realistic depiction of people crying, like ugly crying, like sobbing, hitting stuff. And that's how I felt when Idon finds out that Samai has sold her down the river. Like the raw fury and grief and betrayal, like the raw emotion that Abraham portrays in that scene where she just loses it.
She jumps off the balcony, doesn't she?
Such a realistic, just a realistic portrayal of when we you can't even put into words, just scream because you're just in such pain. And it was just so good.
Abraham's really good at putting his characters in situations where they don't actually have a good choice. You think about Samai at that moment, and what are his choices? And it's called a betrayal in winter for a reason. He betrays her. There's a lot of betrayal in here. She's been betraying people. Tons of betrayal. You could even say Monty betrays Ota when he turns him in. There's all of that. And of course, Ota is considered the great betrayer the whole time, even though he's not. So it's a lot of that. But poor Samai, he's in the situation where he knows who's at the heart of this finally, and he has to unmask her. And to do that is to kill a part of himself. It's very similar, I think, to what Ota had to do in the first book when he was basically asked to spare thousands of innocent people by killing the poet in that book. What was his name? I forget.
Heshai.
Yeah, Heshai. Ota is a murderer, and that is something that is absolutely part of his character now. That's part of who he is, and you can see that haunts him in this book. But he would put it in a place where either you murder this one person or you allow thousands of other people, innocent people, to die. So Abraham does that. He puts his characters in these terrible situations of deep conflict, and you can see the inner turmoil and the price of that as well.
Well, and going off of that, because he is a killer, speaking of genuine reactions is usually when the revelation, because Ota tells Mati, I did it, I killed Heshai.
Yep.
And usually if it's like a TV show or something like that, they're gonna flip the table and or instant punch him in the face, and it said he just kind of freezes and starts processing it, and he thinks it through, and he just asks why. And he tells him, and he's just it was either him or the city. And I mean, he kind of accepts it. Yeah. He's not happy about it, but he processes it and realizes that it was a necessary evil.
We have a similar moment. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I fully expected that the reveal was going to come. That's the only thing I predicted that happened. And the reaction that Mati gives us was so natural and so human that I was surprised by it.
Well, we have that similar situation in Summer when Mati confesses to Ota that him and Liat are, sleeping together, and Ota's just okay. I mean, he's I still like you guys, but I can't trust either one of you. He just reacts rather than flying off the handle. And I think that a lot of times people neglect how powerful quiet moments can be. Mm-hmm. Everything doesn't have to be explosive. You know what I mean? As an actor, as someone who has acted, you're when you're trying to convey something heavy, your instinct goes, especially if you're a loud person like me, your instinct goes to more, but sometimes less is more powerful. And that's something I've had to learn over the years, because it's so much stronger, I think, with what Abraham did than the shouting. And I think that contrasts so well and makes it even more powerful when we see Adon.
That's exactly what I was about to say too. Yeah,
she's so cold though. Like that moment where like she rides out into the woods and just pops him right in the back of the head. And then she just starts screaming. She's just like, it was Ota. Hey, you don't know what Ota looks like.
She's brilliant.
And everybody fell for it. And it was just like, that's fantastic. Well, no, I think she had met Ota by that point.
Adon's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. That scene is really very, very powerful because he had just killed his brother too. And she was kind of like, what was it like? You know? And it was because we know this is foreshadowing. She's about to do the same thing to him. And so she's asking her brother who had killed the other brother, what was it like, you know? And he was haunted by it. And she knows that that's going to be her in a moment, right? So what a powerful scene.
Yeah.
Did anybody love the snarky librarian?
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't say love, but I thought he loved him as a character.
He was hilarious.
He kind of figured it out before everybody else, right? I mean, he's the one who gave Mati the clue he needed, right? Because Mati wasn't really doing that way like everyone else. He didn't even think about Adon, right? So
yeah, and he was hammered when he did it. He was just like, if that was me, I would do this.
I just loved how like pissed off Mati was that he figured it out before he did. Like, you know, like, are you kidding me? This drunk librarian buffoon, he figured it. Come on.
But again, outsiders, like the librarian is in the library for a reason. Like no one takes him seriously. That's why he becomes friends with Mati, because no one ever comes visits him or talks to him. He's just this weird loner who's super protective of his books. And, you know, he's outside all this while everybody who's embroiled in it can't see their freaking hands in front of their nose.
He'd be a great booktuber, I think, that librarian.
That's
he would. He would be,
Ellen
just
described half of BookTube. Weird loner, overly protective of their books.
I mean, that's true.
But yeah, and it's just like with all the reactions, I think they feel so honest. Like we talked about both the quiet and the loud ones, and with Adon too, I feel like it was just all building, and that's like the relationship with the brothers. Because was it Betra?
He was the oldest,
the first one. Yeah, the oldest. Well, like with him too, because Philip, you mentioned like you have very little of him, but like I was assuming he was going to be a main character for the whole book. Like I wasn't expecting him to be killed right off the bat. And the amount of characterization and like making me care about what happens to him that was done so quickly. I was so impressed with that. And then it kind of, I feel like, foreshadowed too with like the other brothers, you know, the killing starts and what do? Not go to ground to try to kill each other. They go to ground together to be like, what's going on? And like, they really didn't want to kill each other. And it just makes you think too, how would this have gone down if Adon didn't start killing them? You know,
they'd have waited for their father to die until they were forced.
Yeah. And then even then, it's just like you wonder if like would the tradition of all the son killing ended? Like they obviously none of them wanted to do it, but they thought somebody else was killing them, so they thought they had no choice. And so it's just like it brings up that question. And yeah, it's very possible they would have just started killing each other anyway, but they definitely none of them like wanted to. And kind of seeing the whole narrative being about the sons killing each other, that's what everybody else thinks, but seeing Adon be the one who's actually going through all of the pain that brings, even though she's succeeding, but then just like realizing everything she's done, it was very powerful in that you could just kind of see her psyche fracturing more and more until the end where it just all like shatters and goes from there.
It makes you think how many of us do things because we think we're supposed to do them. And these brothers don't want to do it, but they think this is what we do. So the only one who questions it at all is Ota, right? Who sees that this whole system, and he tries to even say, this whole system is messed up. Can't we do something different? And that gets just dismissed, right? When I think he was talking to his father, right?
Well, I think the problem there is that, you know, Ota is looking at somebody who killed his family. You know, he killed his brothers, he killed his siblings, and saying, you know what you did was wrong. And this man's at the end of his life. He doesn't want to reflect and think, I could have changed this. This could have gone differently. And, you know, to look at somebody at the end of their life and saying you messed up it's hard to accept, especially when you still technically have the power. And so he basically goes, "You're no son of mine, and how dare you throw my culture in my face?"
I struggle with that. The whole as I live in the South, and in the South there is a Southern culture, and Southern behavior is a real thing. In the South, there are things that you do because you are supposed to do them. And my entire life even before I was diagnosed with autism, I'm just why? But why though? Why do we have to do this? And it's always you're just supposed to. Just do it. But I don't understand why. So there is a lot of that. I think every region has some of that. You know what I mean?
Every part of the world.
Yeah, exactly. So I've always struggled with doing things because you're supposed to. It's a dumb reason. I don't like that reason.
Yeah, but it's such a powerful reason too. I mean, social conformity is very powerful. And what happens to the people who say, "Hey guys, this is dumb. Why are we doing this?"
People are mean to you.
Yeah, not just mean, but you might be that year's victim.
This is going to be the interesting thing to look out for in book 3. I think there's going to be a lot of internal conflict within Ota, because not only is he part of the system now, he's one of the highest rungs of the ladder, and his personal belief system is really going to clash with that system that he is now a part of. And I imagine, like I just said, that there's not going to be any easy magical solution from Daniel Abraham. It's not going to be as much as, oh, well, finally, someone with morals is in charge. This will change everything. I don't think that's going to be.
Yeah, can someone with morals change the society around them, or is the society going to swallow that person when you get into a position of power? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's it's the fact that you can be idealistic, and maybe get elected into, let's say, Congress or whatever. You're going to be devoured. You're going to the pressure is to conform or be devoured. And we have someone in our town who was a representative for our area, and that's what he talks about. It's it's fall in, or at best you'll just be kept at arm's length. You'll be out, you won't be included in anything. At worst, they'll chew you up. So that's why so many people allow themselves to be corrupted by that nonsense. So it's hard. And again, if you have morals, it's also really hard. If you are playing by the rules, it is really hard to win when everyone else is cheating. So how much virtue can a ruler afford? You know what I mean? So it's just, I love books that deal with that deal with how do you try to be a good ruler while, if you're too good, they'll kill you because you're not willing to do the things to stay in power that these other people are willing to do. So
like Betrayal, the oldest brother, I don't think he ever had a chance.
No, it's too nice. Too nice.
They straight up address that in the book too.
He just wants to be an engineer. He's this nerdy engineer that just wants to mine. That's it. He never stood a chance.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you get to see some of their ingenuity too, and you can see people like Bitra being frustrated that they only depend on the Ondat, and everyone else is kind of progressing beyond them because they are still depending on the Ondat for everything. And if they would only allow people like him to flourish and to make discoveries and kind of push society forward, then they wouldn't need to depend on the Ondat as much. But again, it's just what is done.
Yeah, the irony is they might need leaders like Bitra to combat the Galtz, but it gets to another theme, which is this sort of, I guess, the fundamental selfishness of humanity, I think, right? And Idan being, I think, a great example, but just about everybody. I mean, a lot of times characters like Adraf, they act out of motives that can be mixed, but ultimately what wins is this, I got to save me. It's about me. And as this selfishness sort of wins over, I think.
One part of the brilliance, like I'm just sitting here listening to everybody, and part of the brilliance that Abraham achieved in this book is by including so many themes that can spark so much discussion and just so many real world correlations and things of that nature. It's fantastic. Just like I feel like I'm getting college credit right now. But then again, I mean, we got Dr. Philip Chase, so
I literally was just talking about recently the whole conversation we had in the first one where, Philip, you were talking about the difference between low and high context cultures and whatnot. I'm like, I felt like I was sitting in for a lecture, and like I've never enjoyed a lecture more. And so, yeah, there's a ton to explore with this series.
Videos as my educational credits. Mine roll over on January 31st, so I have to log them all this week. So I'm gonna see if I can get that through.
Get those your professional development credits.
Yes, yeah.
Wow. Well, this is the beauty of BookTube and a book as rich as, A Betrayal in Winter, as rich as Daniel Abraham's writing is. I think it's conducive to some really great, like you said, Andrew. It's just, we could sit here and analyze these books because they're that good, and because, like any great piece of literature, they tell us about our own nature. They tell us about our lives. They tell us about what motivates us, and they tell us about our experiences. So these books are absolutely a mirror that can help us understand all these things, and they have absolute real world implications. I mean, you could look at the politics of this world that we're reading about in here and absolutely just sort of put it over our own politics and see what the politics can do to an individual, how it changes a person. I'm also very curious to see what happens with Ota now that he's in a position of power.
So much. Yeah.
The reason books 3 and 4 are so good is because everything that they needed to set up has been set up in books 1 and 2. So now we see everything, like full fruit of everything starts coming out, because we don't have as much setup anymore. So they're just, and look, even Phil right down there finished book 3 last night. Can't believe what a level up that entry was. That's right, Phil. That's right. It's just brilliant. Like, it just keeps getting brilliant. So I'm excited for you guys to read this one and then, defy you to not want to immediately go into Price of Spring.
Wow.
It's gonna have to wait, because if I read ahead, I'm just gonna be sitting here just
don't. It's, these talks are better if you haven't read them. The next one.
That's why I've tried to be so patient.
I know Sarah's struggling with it. I know Sarah just sprints through series.
It's been challenging, but I agree that I think it would be hard to talk about these books having read other books. And I have been really cognizant ever since Alan started talking about like soft spoilers. Like, you're not spoiling something, but the way that you react to something is kind of spoiling it, because I feel like looking back, I'm like, that totally happens and I am guilty of it. And so I wanted to not be guilty of it here. And if I don't know what happens, everything is just.
I put 6 months between Winter and Autumn War. And after I read Autumn War, I'm like, that was dumb. I should have read this like right after Betrayal in Winter. But I still think about these books. You don't understand. Like, I think about Autumn War and Price of Spring almost like weekly, at least. There's not a week that goes by that I do not think about those two books. And it's those two specifically because books 1 and 2 has set everything up. So I'm thinking about the first two also, but really just the repercussions. So, like, I think about them all the time. There are lines of dialogue in Autumn War and Price of Spring that I think about whenever I just feel like having chills, because they're just so powerful. And I think about, like, these lines of dialogue stay in my head. Philip, the same thing happens when you talk about it when you read Malazan, these like powerful lines that stay with you. I still have those with Abraham that stick with me. And they're some of my favorite moments. It's just so good. And so I'm just so excited you guys are reading them and seeing what you guys think.
They're fantastic. Quick question though, and I was having a nice exchange with one of my viewers in this on this topic about the titles. So far, Shadow in Summer, Betrayal in Winter. The book doesn't take place during winter at all, Betrayal in Winter. But I'm guessing that the titles are reflections of the locales. Is that what the deal is? So Shadow and Summer, we were in Saraket, which is way down south, the hot part of the continent.
And it was during summer because they were hot.
And it was hot. I'm not sure if it was summer the whole time or not. I don't remember. But in this particular book, in Betrayal in Winter, it's not winter except for the epilogue, which is cool. I was like, finally, we get to see this place during the winter. I wanted to all along. Yeah. But I'm guessing that it was called that because it was in Machi, which is one of the northern cities. So
it's the northernmost. It's the northernmost city in the Kaite.
Okay, so is that just a reflection of locale then, not necessarily time of year where the titles are coming from?
I think
the seasonal part.
I think it's both. I think it's both because we do see a winter, and it is the winter city, and we see summer. Part of Shadow and Summer takes place in summer, and it's the summer city. Yeah. The events of the next book begin in the autumn.
Okay,
they're you know,
because these seasons are all out of order too. You know?
100%. Yeah.
I also wonder if the next one will be like a transition thing. Like fall is our transition state, spring is our new beginning. Like, is this a thematic naming of book?
It's both.
Okay.
I'm really excited to start the third book.
Just read the prologue. Well,
throw those SL away.
Katrina and Angela, who when they read it were filling me in a Voxer when they were reading everything. They like book 2 better than book 3, but book 4 better than book 3. Book 4 better than book 2. Book 4 is their favorite. It will largely depend on your opinion of the character in the prologue. That has seemed to be book 3. If you are like super like jazzed about the character in the prologue, book 3 is going to be your favorite. If not, it's going to be book 4.
Interesting.
I did have one viewer whose favorite was book 2.
That is impressive, and I understand that. I do understand how you could. I've never had anybody have Shadow and Summer be their favorite, but I can see that, especially if you like Adon. Adon is just such a good character. She's
like you said from the beginning. She's absolutely Shakespearean, and in her interest, in her dynamism. She's the character of this book for me. She's absolutely the central character, and I feel a little weird at times liking her, but she is justified in some ways, or it's understandable, not justified, but it's understandable where she's coming from. And that I admire her being a rebel against the system and as much as she can manage that. Mm-hmm. She doesn't entirely, I mean, it would have been better if she had been like Ota and had seen the injustice of the system and not been like super aggressive and
murderous
and murdering. Yeah, I mean that's not really a cool thing to murder people, especially your siblings and your father, and you know. What? So, but I do think that in some ways I find her compelling because she's not just some, you know, villainous, ambitious, horrible person. There is this whole side of this that gives you understanding into why she does what she does. So I'm very curious to see. I imagine she's not going to drop Idan, that she's going to appear in the next 2 books. But I imagine that she's also,
who knows? You
never know. But I also imagine that she's going to be much changed as a result of what happened to her in this book when we meet her.
I definitely feel like she has to be relevant at least somewhat, because that type of character, like she's going to do something else. Like she's going to cause some sort of trouble, I would imagine. But I was like, you know, with Shadow in the Summer, you had, what's her name? I can't remember.
You had Amat. You don't see her again.
Yeah.
Okay, Amat. Yeah. Well, and like a vital character, you know, the whole time, like her trying to orchestrate too. Like that's what I was curious, because like she was trying to figure out a way to make the city still survive, and then you just find out, well, it didn't work. But like she was most certainly one of the main characters of the first book, and then you never even really mentioned again. And
is there a line of Winter about someone who's trying to keep things afloat, or they're doing something? Somebody, I felt like I remember reading a line about.
I mean,
something.
Sarah Kett got an Ondot back.
Did it?
Did they?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
There's like a single line where it took like 8 years for them to recover.
But it's not. It's not Seedless. They didn't get Seedless.
No, they didn't get Seedless back.
Yeah, they got something that's lesser that has stopped the bleeding, but it's not seedless.
And
It's
basically
literally
was, like,
a
too
one
little, too
sentence
late,
you
I
can
think.
miss.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's why I remember commenting on that. I'm like, that's it. Like, if I go back through all my Voxer messages for the last month, I can find it. 'Cause I'm just
That's
like,
not worth the effort.
I know.
Well,
Like, I
making-
wanted a little more.
If I'm making predictions for the next couple books, I am going to predict that eventually, probably not until the fourth book, but eventually the Ondots are going to be gone. Like the Galtz are going to get their way somehow or other, and the Ondots are going to be undone. And it might happen from something internal, because that's the theme so far, is that the Galtz have been clever about exploiting internal weakness and dissension. So I don't know, but I think that we're going to see the Ondot. The Ondot is both the strength and the weakness of the society, of the city-states of the Kayam. I mean, they're almost like a terrible evil in a way, because of the exploitation upon which they're based, and they don't want to exist either. So that's a precarious thing to build your civilization on, something that doesn't even want to exist, right?
So for me, if I'm going to do a prediction, building off what you just said,
Yeah.
I'm going to also say that the Ondot are gone. However, I think we're going to get a war, and I think the sword's going to cut both ways, and they're both going to get messed up. And then I think in the fourth book, they're going to try and have to find a way forward. Now, what form that takes, I don't know.
Huh.
I find it hard to make predictions, just because already what's happened has just gone in some very unexpected ways, I feel like. But I mean, obviously, there's going to be war. And the Ondot I do find really interesting, too. And just kind of the, once again, setting your society based on that, too. Because we already saw Serica basically just collapsed because they didn't have their, magical seed removing thing anymore. And so many of them are based on that. And so it's kind of where you're looking at, you basically have a culture that they're not advancing in a normal pathway because they're just relying on the magic. And the Galtz, I imagine, especially as time go on, are going to be much more technologically advanced in comparison. So it'll be really interesting to see.
I don't have a ton of predictions either. I feel like these books go in very wild directions, and because there's such a big time skip too, you're not sure who's going to be important, who's going to come back. So I'm just along for the ride. I'm looking forward to seeing. I do think, right. It's going to be hard on Ota to be leader. I think that's one prediction I feel comfortable making, because I don't think that he's going to enjoy that position very much. I do want to see what becomes of Mati, because he has simultaneously redeemed himself, and then also he only got that redemption because he didn't listen to his orders. Like, if he had returned and done what he was supposed to do, none of this would have ever come to light, and Ota would have been presumed villain of the story, and everybody would have been happy with that. So I don't know where his future leads either.
Yeah, you like my poker face?
I do like it.
It's very good poker face.
It is important for this series, especially, for me not to react. Like, it's just so important to avoid listening to people soft spoiling or talking about it. It's just so important, because it's just so good. It's just so good.
I will say too that I like the dichotomy between magic and technology. That seems to be what's being set up here with the Galtz versus the Kayam, and that's something you see often in fantasy, this inverse relationship between technology and magic, where the one always seems to be hostile to the other in some way or other. Or you have to choose. You can have a magical society, but then technology is not going to be so good, or technology tends to kill magic, right? So yeah, that's another cool thing about this.
It'd be good to get a different perspective too, because so far the Galtz have been framed as, insofar as we have had one, the bad guys. Like, they're the people who are on the outside orchestrating these changes. But if we go outside the society and look in at these people who are utilizing these, I don't know, we can't call them people, but these corporeal manifestations, like they're entrapping them, they're using them against their will. I don't think the Galtz motivations are pure in this. I think they're kind of driven by economics and like the need for expansion. But it'll be interesting to see things from their point of view, if in fact we do get a Galtish character.
Well, Alan, didn't you initially say the Galtz were like the Roman Empire or something like that?
The Galtz are the expansionist Europeans. They're the expansionist Europeans. I mean, they say in Shadow and Summer that the Galtz have pretty much taken over the entirety of the Western continent, and then they're trying to come eastward, but they're not going to. They can't declare war, so the Kayam have allowed them to trade there, but they're trying to undermine their system without being found out because the Ondat will kill them. So they're trying to find a way, because the solution for the Galtz is never to, what if we just didn't take them over? That's not in the cards. It's, well, how do we do it without getting killed? Like, so, I mean, but again, like, gotta expand, gotta get that cash money. So the Galtz are, I mean, it's, again, just read the prologue of Autumn War.
Well, and even with them being expansionists too and everything, and like they have been kind of set up as the bad guys, but as we all spent a lot of time discussing, like this area that we're looking at is not exactly like a paradise for people either. So, you have your dictator ruling class who their sons kill each other, decide who's gonna rule next, and like there are like other like powerful families and everything, but it's not set up to be like this wonderful place being invaded. And so it'll be interesting to see how Galt and how the Galtz in general are portrayed, just to see, because with Abraham, I don't think it's going to be as simple as like, we're going to get there and they're like, oh yes, we are bad, let's go, get them and invade and kill them on. Like I imagine it's going to be a lot more complex.
Nico, your point about like we own, like, our main characters are of the elite ruling class. Mati's from the poets, who are maybe more revered than the actual rulers, and Ota's a prince, essentially. Like, our two main characters are the freaking upper crust of society. We have to look at Liat from book 1, and who's a commoner in book 2. They're all freaking part of they're all part of the royal family. So we're sitting here looking at the petty squabbling of the elite, and that makes it even more ridiculous. Like, y'all have it good. The other people have to hide in the freaking underground from the cold. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, but I could take one of my favorite minor characters is the mercenary who betrays his employer to help Ota escape. I can't remember his name, but
Sinja? Is that Sinja?
Yeah, Sinja. Yeah. I hope he appears in the next book. That's all I'm saying. And that he'll be obviously working for Ota still, I think. So
it's the hope.
Yeah.
We have everybody else, just so you know, Alan, people in the comments are having a hard time not revealing anything either.
Abraham, like, he's good. Like, he just planned everything from the beginning, and it's always so good to see when you're like, hey, look at the breadcrumbs, look at how we got here, as opposed to, well, that came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Because clearly you didn't plan on writing a third book when you started the series. You know what I mean? Like, we've all had that where it's like, really, how have I not heard about? So hold on. So there's a device that can turn back time at Hogwarts, and we didn't see that in like the first 2 years. Is that a juniors only like thing? Like, come on. Also, you want to know why Peter Pettigrew didn't freaking murder Ron in his sleep? Because Scabbers wasn't Peter Pettigrew in the first 2 books. Retconning.
Spoiler alert.
Oh,
I mean, that could just be summed up by
Harry Potter. Who
Potter's
hasn't read
bad.
Harry Potter?
Scabbers was framed. Scabbers was framed.
Hashtag justice for Scabbers.
I did not expect this to go to a Harry Potter conversation. So that no, it's totally fine.
Harry Potter has a lot of retcons.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's just the comparison between the two, and they're not the same. They're not the same. Like, they're not the same. They're not intended for the same people. But it's just, I love seeing the fact that, everything leads to something organically instead of, gods from the heavens.
Yeah, it's very well planned. That's for sure. Yeah.
It's nice having something where you can analyze the heck out of it because there's so much to analyze versus people overanalyzing and trying to make something into more than it is.
Yeah.
Which you get sometimes.
For sure.
Well, it gives you faith that his other book series are going to work out, so you can read Age of Ash next month, everybody.
Literally,
It's
literally.
really
I'm
good.
already reading The Expanse, and I'm loving that.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you guys, because this is the only Daniel Abraham I've read, how would you rate this in comparison to his other series?
This is the best. Unfortunately, this is the best one. And it sucks because it's not pushed because it's with a different publisher. Orbit doesn't push it. And because he had that difficulty with the publisher, Daniel Abraham doesn't push it. And it makes me sad because everyone knows him from The Expanse now, and no one's read Dagger and Coin. Dagger and Coin, the first book of Dagger and Coin, which is all I've read, but Petrick and Jimmy have both said that they say similar things about Long Price Quartet, that, everything wraps up. But there's a character that is just like, oh man, like it's just such a good character. But also Abraham just writes these put upon characters really well. These down on their luck, like frustrated at things. And there's a character like that in Dagger and Coin that's excellent. And Age of Ash is excellent. This one's my favorite. But again, I've finished this series. So,
yeah.
But it's people, they're marketing. They're like, Age of Ash from one of the authors of The Expanse. They're marketing that incorrectly. If you're expecting Leviathan Wakes when you read Age of Ash, you're not going to get it. It's slow. It's a slow character study, just like Shadow and Summer and just like Dragon's Path.
Okay.
So people who are new to Abraham or who don't know that that's what he's doing. It's because he's planned everything. It's just slow to start with because he is laying the groundwork for what is coming later. And he's getting you attached to these people and their relationships. So I like both Dragon's Path and Age of Ash, but it's just doesn't hold a candle to Long Price Quartet.
That doesn't hurt Age of Ash. Like, I hope having people come in who are expecting that kind of fast-paced Expanse like story don't come into Age of Ash and be like, oh,
Well,
clearly the other good.
Here's where we have Philip's argument against star ratings. When we look at Goodreads, Age of Ash is being torched because of this very thing. Like it is like at a 3.6 and the book ain't even come out yet. It's like a 3.7 already because it's not what people want or what people expect. And it makes me sad.
I wouldn't trust star ratings necessarily in terms of the quality of a book.
Yeah. Shadow and Summer has low ratings too. It's like 3.5. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have that conversation another time.
Indeed. Your crusaders,
the Grand Crusade,
are at the gates of my city, trying to tear me out and string me up for my 5-star heresies.
Yep. We are conducting the siege as we speak.
Well, even for my book of the year, which was Dragon Mage, which Alan's mad at me at because of the length of that.
It's 1,000 pages.
It's 800 pages.
It's not. It's 198 or something, isn't it?
It's really not the pages that matter anyway. It's the word count.
That's true.
It's also fair.
So it was. I gave it 5 stars, but at the same time, like Niko's reading it right now. Like I messaged him. I'm like, the first 30% is not flawless, but like when I did my review, I prefaced this is a very personal 5 stars to me because of the themes, the protag, and just how I identify with the story. That's why I gave this 5 stars. It's not a flawlessly technically Anthony Ryan style novel where everything is just so. It's just that I loved it.
Yeah. Well, I hope to have more Daniel Abraham discussions with you guys. Like Philip, if you ever get around to reading his other works, or Sarah and you, Niko, Andrew, you guys, like I'm totally up for it.
I've got I'm reading The Expanse. I've got Age of Ash on the way.
Oh, that's right, Niko.
And I've got Dagger and Coin.
You plan Dagger and Coin this year,
I pre-ordered Age of Ash, but it says it doesn't know when it's going to be delivered, so that was weird. But I already read it because I got the e-arc of it. So, but yeah, I thought it was really good. Actually, a lot more happened in it than I was expecting for a first book for Abraham.
More than Shadow and Summer.
It's slow.
Where nothing.
I know. It's like everybody's like, it's so slow, and I'm like, well, like it's a Daniel Abraham first book. It was actually a lot faster than I thought it would be. So
it's excellent.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm excited.
I've got Age of Ash pre-ordered, Expanse, and Dagger and Coin. So I'm going to be continuing with my Abraham journey.
So Anything? Does anybody have any final thoughts on winter for the good of the order?
Final thoughts on the
Read
topic
it.
of the video.
Yeah. Well, there's no one.
5 stars.
No one quits after Betrayal in winter. If they quit after Shadow in summer. So everyone here is either already a convert or is, planning on reading it. Who would quit after winter? It's so weird.
Yeah. No, it's a
I do
fantastic
feel
segment.
like, yeah, if somebody like
technically,
didn't
you
like
could
the
quit
first-
at winter.
Yeah, but I mean, no one's going to.
Yeah.
Well, no one's going to, but you could, because technically right now, like, they're both top of the pile. Like, Mati's redeemed, Ota's in charge.
Yeah.
It is a stopping point. It's just not the stopping point.
Andrew, you're going to give Alan a stroke.
No, I'm saying that people quit.
That's my life goal.
People quit.
My goal.
Like it. No one's going to who likes it. It's going to stop halfway through the series.
But Andrew's point.
My goal is to take Alan's place.
Oh, usurper. Yeah. No, so I think you have a point there, though, Andrew, which is that this feels like a satisfying, almost standalone book, right? And so did A Shadow in Summer. So, and that's an interesting feature of this quartet so far, anyway, is that each book feels self-contained, but they also follow from each other, it seems, so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that pattern, I guess, is going to continue.
Yeah, part of that is because of the distance between the books. It's got to wrap up. If you've got anything else left to do, like you can't. You just skipped 14 years. So
yeah,
so it's good stuff. I like talking about this stuff with you guys.
Cool. Likewise.
These have been fantastic conversations. So
let's keep it going. Let's do Dagger and Coin next.
Look, whenever y'all get around to it, I'm up for it. So
you know how easy I am to talk into Buddy Reads, Andrew.
I think, though, Alan, after Abraham, I'm probably going to read your other series, which is, of course, the Books of Babel.
No matter what you think about those books, Philip, you will love and appreciate Bancroft's prose.
I'm sure.
It's very poetical.
Guaranteed.
Poetic?
Like with
Poetical?
your love of literature,
Poetical?
it feels so classic.
Cool. Yeah.
I definitely still need to read those too.
I have read them.
Nice. So
I just made a list of the 10 series I needed to read this year, and that's not on there, and it probably should be.
Oops.
What are you doing to me, Alan?
I'm sorry.
He's not sorry.
No.
It was his video that made me write my own list too, which makes it worse. And now he's making me change my list.
That is why he's the Long Price Prophet.
That's right. I'm so glad.
We can't stop at a nameplate. You need a shirt and a hat. You have to wear them in all your videos.
A leather bomber jacket.
A tweed jacket. I'm gonna usurp Philip.
So Alan's taking Philip's spot. I'm taking Alan's spot. I guess.
Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy.
Until next time.
That's right. Until next time.
Boosh. Boosh.
Yeah, you better start working on your boosh, Andrew. You better start booshing.
Boosh.
Unfortunately, Philip, I literally can't grow a beard. It just looks patchy and homeless.
Oh,
I'll just have to if I take Andrew's place, I'll just have to switch my video speed to 1.5 so it sounds like I'm talking.
Yes, edit it in 1.5 and export it like that. So it's like, hey guys, what's up?
Sarah, whose place are you gonna take?
I don't know. Who can I usurp? I have no idea.
You can usurp Klaus.
we have the opposite person.
No, you just come and say, okay, so today this book is too slow. 1 star. I hated it. I hated everything about it. And this bottle of pills, they took effect too slowly. 1 star.
This is the worst book ever.
Here, you're all going down. It will happen slowly and secretly, but there will only be one left.
She's gonna usurp us all.
You're the Idon.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway.
We should have stopped recording.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think we've reached the natural end of this broadcast. So thanks everybody for joining. This has been a blast. And watch out, we'll announce when the next one's going to be at some point. So keep an eye out.
Don't trust the Canadians. They're just telling you to.
They just look nice. Yeah.
Who's